So, as chair of the SATAA, Aruna, I'm delighted to welcome you here. We feel like we really connected with our organizations because we've got the same letters, more or less. So, SATA or SATA, South Asian Association or South African Association. You are, in fact, president of the local Indian Association, and we've always been inspired in Africa by the work of TA people in India, your passion, your dedication, your enthusiasm. So really look forward to experiencing something with you. A really important topic for us to be exploring, choosing courage in the face of invisible oppression. So over to you.
Thank you. I feel very honored to be here. And I have known Karen and Diane for many years, and I feel very honored, that to be invited by you here and that you're participating in a session with me. So thanks again, to all of you. So I take over from here? Sure. So can I get to know a little bit about you? Are all of you in South Africa, or are there people from other countries as well? Okay, I know Papia sounds like a very Indian name. Where are you from?
I'm from Pune, India, Aruna.
Oh, okay. You're logging in from Pune?
Yes.
Great. And what about the others? Yeah, Ravia, where are you from?
Hello, Aruna. I am joining you from The Hague in the Netherlands.
Oh.
However, I am not Dutch. I carry a British nationality, but my background is Lebanese and Ghanaian.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I think you will, I hope you will find opportunity to share a lot about yourself and your history in the topic that we're going to discuss today. So I look forward.
I hope so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And the others are all from South Africa, is it? All right, yeah. Can I get a sense of your broad number of years of TA training? Maybe you could just hold up fingers. How many years of TA training? So I can see 5, 4, 10, 5, 10, okay, 20.
Haven't got enough fingers.
Okay, yeah. What about you, Papia? 1, okay. Okay, great, yeah. Everyone here familiar with the drama Triangle? Yeah, everyone here familiar with Petrushka Clarkson's, I forgot the first name, bystander role, bystander position. Okay, okay, vaguely. Oh, all right, that's fine. All right, so I'm assuming all of you have come here by choice. Yeah, you have chosen to participate. So I want to start by asking what drew you to the topic? Yeah, so what attracted you to this? Maybe we can talk about that, and then I'll share with you what I'm going to present. Yes, Ravia.
I'm happy to go first. So I didn't really, my last memory of the drama Triangle was during my divorce 5 years ago. I don't really work with it much, a little bit. And when I saw the email from SATA, I thought, oh, this will be a good refresher course, you know. So I joined more to sort of remember more about it, see a different application of it, because you mentioned something about a pyramid, which I haven't heard of before. So I was just curious to see whether I could learn something new and having a different memory.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't mind going next. So it says my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize if I'm freezing. But very excited to be here. I love the drama Triangle. I'm very good at being in the drama Triangle. So this will hopefully help me see even more how to step out of it. I also work with organizations and love bringing it into the leadership perspective in terms of how people use it. But also my curiosity has moved into functional fluency recently. And I did read that this was also going to bring an element of functional fluency in. So I thought that that would just expand my kind of TA lens and functional fluency lens. So very excited to see what we get to share today.
Thank you. Thank you, Clive. Yeah. Yes. Anyone else? You could also put it on chat, or you can say ditto, or you can say pass. All of these are all right.
I think just something to add from my side is so as I'm curious to know more about the bystander role. So I remember being introduced to it through TA Foundation year. So I'm curious to see more of that come to life and get to know it a bit better and how to work with it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Aruna, as well, the bystander and the aspect of this the pyramid, which I'm guessing means that the bystander role becomes very integral to, and not sort of a hovering out there piece of the drama triangle, is interesting to me. So, and I have a few questions around that as once you get going. That, yeah, I'm very interested to hear more about that.
Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. Diane?
I was interested to see how you use the material and how you've expanded on it. So for me, that's my interest. And I'm also very interested in it, the drama triangle in terms of social context as well as individual. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm curious. I've worked with the drama triangle and what the winners circle
Yeah.
within OK communication framework. So really curious about the drama pyramid and how that will expand my thinking even more.
Okay, lovely, lovely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Is there anyone else who wants to go?
I'll just say the drama triangle was the very first model I ever met with TA when I was 16. And so it's always been a very personal model for me. So I'm always keen to learn more. And I know of the bystander role, but I don't know that I know enough about the bystander role. So I'm looking forward to learning more.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Great. So the model that I'm presenting today is created by two of us, and my colleague Aparna is very happy to let me take the lead in all these presentations because she's an extremely busy historian. She's actually training in transactional analysis with me. And when I was teaching the drama triangle in the foundation year, which she was part of, she challenged me and said there's something missing here. And I was quite intrigued by that challenge, and we spoke more, and the we evolved the model in our discussions. So yeah, so I wanted to give credit to Aparna as she's co-constructed this with me. So let's start by, everyone knows the drama triangle, right? These are three roles that we take on in when we engage in games. These are unconscious. They involve discounts of self or the other. And we use these to further our script. And we move fluidly between these roles. And all of us are familiar with all the roles. All of us are, like Clive, good at many of these roles. But we prefer some of these more than the other. And we have patterns of where we start and where we end. And this is what we know about the drama triangle, which was created by Stephen Karpman in the 1968. And it's often it's such a interesting and easy to understand model, and immediately useful and relevant. And I can imagine that the first introduction to TA is often for many people through this model. So Petruska-Clarkson added to this by introducing a fourth role, which she called the bystander role. Yeah, and this is how she diagrammed the bystander role as a person witnessing a drama. outside the drama triangle, though she said that the bystander has a very significant role it may have a very significant role in the drama itself. But this is how she positioned it, and she defined the bystander as a person who does not act when someone needs help. So this was her definition. Yeah, so we'll keep these in mind. We'll explore all of these more deeply in just a few minutes. So I'm going to start by sharing a story. I'm sharing a story from the Indian context. And then I'll be happy to hear if you have similar old or current stories in your contexts, and we can see the idea, how the ideas can come alive in your context as well. So this is the story of a tribal boy called Ekalavya, and this is a story from our epic called Mahabharat. I don't know, you may have some familiarity with that epic. So this is a tribal boy, Ekalavya, who desires to be an archer. So he goes to the royal teacher, the royal guru, a very skilled archer himself. His name is Drona, and he asks him, "Can you take me as your student?" Now, Drona does not teach anyone who's not a prince. And in India, we have a very well-established caste system. So Drona apologizes to him and turns him away and says, "Sorry, you'll have to find yourself another teacher." So this tribal boy goes to the forest where he lives, and he picks up the clay, picks up the mud on which Drona has walked, and he makes a statue of Drona. He prays to it every morning, and he teaches himself archery. Yeah, so such is his devotion to his guru, that he doesn't actually need the guru to teach him. He believes that the guru is actually teaching him. And a few years pass, and Drona's star pupil was the Prince Arjuna. And one day, Arjuna and Drona were in the forest for some reason, and they happened to chance upon a dog that was barking, but that had been muzzled by arrows. So the arrows prevented the dog from barking, but the dog was not hurt at all, and it was walking around the forest with the arrows in its mouth. And immediately they knew that there was an archer more skilled than Arjuna. Now, Drona had made a promise to Arjuna that he would make him the greatest archer in the world. So, well, to uphold the promise, they had to find who this person was, and they went searching for him, and they soon found him. And at first, Drona didn't recognize him, and he asked him, "Who's your teacher? Who taught you this? You seem very skilled." And then Ekalavya reminded him that I had come to you, and I have made a statue of you, and I consider you my teacher. So you have taught me this. So instantly, without too much thought, Drona says, "If I am your teacher, you need to pay me a fee." Yeah, and that in India we call a guru dakshina. Yeah, and so Ekalavya says, "Name your fee. I will give you the fee." And Drona unflinchingly says, "Give me the thumb of your right hand as the fee." Yeah, and the story goes that Ekalavya, without hesitation, slices off his thumb and offers that as Guru Dakshina. So I'll shift the names and the if the characters are confusing. So here's the story. Here's the royal teacher Drona. This is Arjuna. And this is the statue that he made of Drona with clay. And this is Ekalavya. Yeah. All right. So let me stop the visual and let me stop the share and ask you, how are you feeling at the end of the story? So Ekalavya in our culture is recognized as being a student with the greatest devotion to his guru. Yeah, and there are sports awards in our organization dedicated to Drona and to Ekalavya. Yeah, so This is meant to be an inspirational story of dedication and loyalty to a guru. Let me pause now and ask you, how are you feeling?
Feel
Yes.
it's
Sorry, Karen, you first.
I'm sitting feeling that's not fair.
You're
Yeah.
feeling, you're
In a
feeling angry?
nutshell.
Same here.
Yeah. Margaret, you're also angry?
Same,
Very
yeah, same here.
uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. Okay. Any feelings other than anger? Yes, Andrew?
I'm not sure if it's anger, but I had some physical feelings. So like I felt like my stomach kind of dropped a little bit, and then I have a bit of a constriction, but also a warmth in my chest. So it's a bit of there's a juxtaposition between the two.
Yeah, yeah. But the dropping of the stomach is really a shock at the outrageous ask, isn't it? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm feeling also kind of confused, I think, and as to why the guru would make him destroy his craft, because after this, surely he couldn't be an archer. So I'm finding it very selfish.
It is. It is. Yeah. It is it's a political act, isn't it? To protect his student, his star student, from having a rival. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a cruel, barbaric act. Yeah. All right. So we've got in touch with our feelings. So let's take a moment to also to look at these people through the drama roles. Yeah. Who played which role in this story? So what would you say? Can you hear my dogs? Are they bothering you? Yeah,
Little bit, not a lot.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. Who played which role? You want the names again? Are those names maybe a little?
I would say Ekalavia is the victim.
Ekalavia is the victim. Okay.
Drona, I would say Drona. How do you
Yeah.
say it?
Drona.
is the persecutor. And Aruna is the bystander, really.
Arjuna is a bystander. Okay. That's great. We have one interpretation. Ekalavya victim, Drona persecutor, Arjuna bystander. Let's hear if there are alternate interpretations.
Right. So I had thought that Drona would also be the persecutor, but I was struck that Ekalavia wasn't actually on a drama triangle because
why
he was so willing.
Yeah, because he willingly gave. He didn't show the typical choiceless, helpless traits that we'd attribute with the victim. Yeah, with not taking responsibility for self or discounting own agency. It looked like he very willingly, happily gave his thumb. How do you see that? So you're confused by that?
Well, just thinking that doesn't seem to be a drama triangle role.
Yeah.
So he's coming from his adult ego state, I suppose. It sounds like he's present.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Drona is a persecutor. Ekalavya is not there in the drama role. Any other interpretations?
Well, I'm wondering about whether Drona is the persecutor in that instance, because if there is no victim, then there's no persecutor, first of all. And secondly, it's contractual, and it's a tradition and a contract that your teacher gets paid, and he knows that. So it's not a persecutory stance to say you have to pay me, and you pay me, and the contract also is in saying, of course, I'll pay you whatever you want. That's a contract. So it's not, then if you look at it sort of quite objectively and impassionately, it's not a drama triangle at all. It's merely the seeing out of a clear contract. But if we get into the feelings around as the outsiders looking at this, that's where we begin to go, oh, that's not fair.
Yeah. So
I'm
technically,
go.
contract. Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm looking at it in terms of it perhaps not being a drama triangle in the obvious sort of way, but it's nevertheless part of a socially oppressive system where one person is less okay than another.
Yeah.
And maybe even accepts that role to some extent, but maybe not. But they're in that social role. So whether it's a drama triangle role or not, I'm uncertain, because I don't see much switching of roles. But I do see it as a socially oppressive system.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's answer this question. How come Ekalavya gave his thumb willingly? How would we explain that?
So what Diane's just said has made me think that perhaps it's a systemic drama triangle. So there is the oppressive, you kind of, sense of you need to do whatever I tell you is the persecutor, and he is the victim purely based on culturally what he needs to do. And that's why he does it, because the game is that those are the rules of the game.
Yeah. Lovely. So this is why we say, somebody else wants to, Karen, do you want to say something?
The concept of somebody being the scapegoat for a group is coming in. Many theories around scapegoating are around, and almost he takes that role because of the culture, as you said, Clive and Diane.
And I'm thinking of cultural scripting.
Yeah. So we can see that it is very difficult to use the idea of drama roles without understanding the cultural context. That's where the idea of cultural parent, which was an idea introduced by Pearl Drego, becomes very relevant. So the cultural parent is the common parent ego state. That's how she defines it. A common parent ego state of all the people in a particular culture. So it means the norms, the shoulds, the ought tos are universally held in that culture. So what's oppressive and what is normal is understood in that frame, right? So if that frame suggests that a prince or a royal teacher as a person is psychologically higher or superior, a tribal person is, the life of a tribal boy is worth lesser. The ambition of a tribal boy is of no consequence when there's an ambition of a prince at stake. This is the culturally accepted frame. So which is why Drona doesn't have to think twice before making such an outrageous ask. It may, to him in his mind, it may not even be wrong. And Ekalavya accepting that ask as an act of devotion, he is just following what is expected of from people of his stature, of his caste. He's doing that. And my colleague Aparna, the historian, says maybe there isn't the story of the only the story of victors is narrated. So it looks like Ekalavya gave his thumb willingly, but maybe he wouldn't be safe if he didn't give his thumb. Yeah, so better to have a life than to lose. Yeah, better to have a life, or better to protect his community from the wrath of the princes. These are stories we don't know of. Yeah, so we cannot understand drama roles without understanding the socio-political factors at play. And let's look at the role of Arjuna. Yeah, he watches, he doesn't stop Drona. He watches the oppression silently. So technically, he's a bystander. There was somebody who needed help and he didn't step in. But if we go beyond the technical definitions, what is he really?
I would say a persecutor.
He's a persecutor, isn't it? It is his need to be the greatest archer. Yeah. And because of his need, Drona is acting a particular way, and he doesn't stop Drona. And Petrushka Clarkson also says, if we don't act when someone needs help, we are colluding with the persecutor.
Yeah.
But here he's not just a neutral person who's colluding with the persecutor. He is the reason for the drama. Yeah. So often there are people who look like bystanders in a particular situation. But if we zoom out and look at the larger context, the drama may be because of the bystander. Yeah. Would you know of contexts like that? Where there are seemingly neutral people who are not involved in the drama, and it could be happening every day at home, at work, who we think is a bystander actually be an oppressor or a persecutor. Maybe the drama is because of them in some way.
And I'm thinking of the game called Let's You and Him Fight.
Yeah.
and that's to me where that fits so well, that somebody appearing to be a bystander and not involved actually quietly instigates the drama.
Yeah. So an example of that is patriarchy. Yeah. So in India, it's not at all uncommon for a woman to be saddled with the task of running the house and parenting the children. Yeah, so she's overworked, and an exhausted mother can turn persecutory to her children, saying you're not eating enough, fast enough, you're not studying, you're creating, and she may be yelling and nagging the children. And the uninvolved father who's watching TV or reading the newspaper may come across as a bystander. And he may enter the drama as a gracious rescuer trying to placate the mother. But can you see that he's contributing to the persecution of the mother by not taking on responsibility in the house? Yeah, he looks like a bystander, but by himself recognizing that he needs to play a role in parenting, he is a persecutor. So here we can see that patriarchy, all are victims of patriarchy. So it's not to blame the persecutors or the bystanders, but there's a cultural parent which defines what the roles are. And so to understand drama roles, we really need to understand cultural context, and we need to understand socio-political factors at play. This apolitical understanding of theory is extremely limiting. Now we're talking about this, and the idea that theory should not be apolitical is not new to transactional analysis. It was first introduced by Claude Steiner when he wrote about radical psychiatry. Yeah, and he said, let me just read. Yeah. I think he said, he wrote something called the Radical Psychiatry Manifesto. And he said, individual psychiatry actually silently colludes with the notion that people's difficulties have their sources within them, while implying that everything is well with the world. Yeah. Can you see how individual work? So which is what happens. I've seen this happening in organizations as well. If women have to be promoted to leadership, they would say, send women to training to fight bias. And a lot of women are sent to training. So women have to fight for themselves. Those who are biased are not, the system doesn't change, but women are taught how to fight the oppressive system. Do you see a problem with that? And which is what we may be doing as therapists, isn't it? We'll say, send us the victims of oppressive practices in the world, and we will teach them how to find their own power to fight this oppression while the oppression can continue without check. Yeah, so this is what he wrote about in Radical Psychiatry, that we don't assume that cure and change is a purely intrapsychic process. But in practice, it's not widely understood, isn't it? Cure and change is seen as largely an intrapsychic process. Yeah, so when Burns said we are all born princes and princesses, he did not account for the inequality and alienation that people face because of their race, their gender, their skin color, their caste, their religion, even wealth. Yeah. So it's not easy for people in various parts of the world to say, okay, I'm empowered today. Just like it was not easy for Ekalavya to say, a lot of people say, why didn't Ekalavya say no? Yeah, he's a rescuer. He rescued Drona. But no as an option is not in his imagination at all. And that's the socio-political and context. None of the three can imagine no, that saying no, a tribal boy can say no to a royal prince. That option doesn't exist. And that's the power of the cultural parent. Let me pause here and let me hear your...
Aruna, could you read that quote again? Did you say it was Claude Steiner?
Claude Steiner, in his Radical Psychiatry Manifesto. Yeah?
Okay,
Want me to read it again?
Yes.
Yeah, individual psychiatry silently colludes with the notion that people's difficulties have their sources within them, while implying that everything is well in the world. Yeah, so it's one of his
Brilliant.
sense. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Listening to you, Aruna, it makes me think of slavery and of racism and of how we, that the world feels that the weight of solving racism is put on the shoulders of Black people.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about, that it's really what you shared is very interesting. And I see it happening, in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a book called The Therapy Industry, and that's a book against psychotherapy. Yeah, it says it's a fraud industry. The book is, and one of the chapters is titled, "I'm not ill, I've been hurt by you." Yeah. So yeah, we can see it like that.
Yes,
Yes.
I just want to, it was Claude Steiner and the radical psychiatry movement that drew me to TA in the first place. I'd read Byrne, but he hadn't taken in the same way that Claude Steiner did. And the other person who wrote with Claude Steiner was his partner, Hoagie Wyckoff. And her work on alienation is so brilliant. I recommend that as well to people if they're wanting to follow that up. Yeah, thank you. I love this stuff.
Yeah, he didn't write much. So there's just a chapter or two, but that's powerful enough. Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so this idea, so cultural parent makes oppression invisible because it's acceptable in cultures to act in a certain way. So have you heard the term invisible oppression? Oppression that is normalized. Yeah. Do you have examples in your culture of what could be invisible oppression?
I'm thinking of sexual harassment in the workplace, what I come across.
That's
I'm
very
just thinking out loud here. I'm not sure if it fits.
Sexual harassment is very visible oppression. So
well, that's what's interesting about it, is that I'm thinking of the experiences where the harassment is not visible enough So the person being harassed feels they cannot complain. And if they complain, the answer is, what, he didn't touch you, he's just looking. Or it's just a pat on the back. So at that level, the subtlety of it, and in South Africa, the definition of sexual harassment is any unwanted act, any, which includes a look. So it's quite radical, I think. But yeah, that's where I'm going with this. So not when it's overt, but where it's very hard to name.
Sure.
And so it doesn't exist.
Even a compliment on somebody's looks
Yes.
is that now that feels like a compliment, but it is oppressive because it may involve some kind of objectification.
Yeah, and I've come across I just thought of one in particular, an organization where the women had that from one senior manager and they complained about it, but nothing was done and they were told they're being silly and they were told that's just his way. I was in the senior executive team and I was the only woman there, and I got to hear how the men would talk and laugh about it, that the women were so sensitive and ha, and it was very boys clubbish, you know? And so in that, it was just, oh, you're just going to have to accept it. If you work in this organization, it's just the way it is, dear.
Yeah. So, so all this is oppression. Yeah. Jokes or patronizing statements, subtle put downs. But I'm also referring to, now we're talking about gender related, the father giving away the bride. Now, this is seen as a matter of so much joy and warmth and love and pride. But do you see an oppressive element here? Yeah. So this is what we call normalized oppression. It's something to be celebrated, right? Fathers look forward to giving away their daughters, but there is something built in giving away. Yeah. So the choicelessness is implied for the woman, or the woman taking the last name of her father or her husband. These are examples of normalized oppression. Like in India, it's not at all uncommon for the cutlery for staff at home to be different. The plates and the spoons to be different from the cutlery for the family members. Yeah, and even if they're eating the same food, they will not sit at the table and eat. They will sit in the balcony and eat. And if you invite the person to say, come and have tea in the cup that I usually have, or sit with me, the staff member will be extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, for them, their place is in the balcony or in the backyard. So that is very normalized.
I think in South Africa, the whole class system is extremely normalized. It has racial tones to it, but we had very clear racial oppression, very, very stark and very clear. That is, in a sense, gone, but the class system is still very current.
Yeah. Great. So now we have to see, look at our roles. So the first thing we thought about is Alan Jacobs also says that bystanders are the largest number in any system. Yeah. And bystander, everyone says, including Petruska Clarkson, Alan Jacobs, bystanders hold a lot of power. Yeah. They can start a game or they can stop a game. Would you agree? Yeah. Sometimes bullies bully publicly. Yeah, because they need bystanders so that they can be seen as nobody messes with us. So they may not bully if there wasn't an audience to cheer them or to whom they wanted to intimidate. And sometimes the presence of a bystander stops a game. Like I remember I went to a government school and as a volunteer, and a teacher was going to raise his cane to hit a little boy. But when I was there, he just put the cane away. Yeah, just my presence reduced the violence in the school. So just having other people around the classrooms reduced the number of times the children were caned. So bystanders have a lot of power. Now, even the littlest act of bystanders can make a difference. But we also know that bystanders don't act. Yeah, and Petruska has written a beautiful article which she calls bystander games, where she's put down, classified these reasons why bystanders don't act as games, as 12 different games. But in our model, we are saying many times bystanders don't act because they don't recognize that there's an oppressive act. And it may be normal to them. So that may be a reason that, and inviting people to account for socio-cultural factors can actually help them see oppression as is. And therefore, once they recognize oppression, then they have to look at what allows them to act. And one of the key reasons that bystanders don't act is they feel unsafe. Yeah, and they sometimes they don't know whether they would become persecutors in the process, and they don't want to be persecutors. They don't want to be rescuers, and as a result, they freeze. They feel that they don't have options in that situation. So one model that okay, before that I have to present to you, sorry, I'm speaking fluidly. I forgot to present to you our model before I before moving to what to do about it. Let me take a minute and present the model to you. So the model that Aparna and I came up with is, we wanted to highlight the significance of the bystander role, so this is the drama triangle. So our thinking was that the bystander is not just a person outside the triangle looking in. Sometimes the drama is because of the bystander, and the bystander can very easily move into the roles of rescuer and persecutor. We are switching not between 3 roles, but between 4 roles. And even a bystander is impacted by the cultural parent. Yeah. I'll give you a few minutes. And so we've constructed this in the form of a pyramid, where we've said the pyramid is a glass structure. And the glass, or the invisible part, the glass is what we can't see we are assuming that the glass is invisible or see-through. That is the cultural parent. And all the 4 roles are impacted by the cultural parent. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to just take a look at this model and share with me thoughts or questions or comments as you see this. It doesn't have the earlier one, the victim was one down, isn't it? So it was very clear. The persecutor and rescuer are one up, and the victim is one down. And so that's one disadvantage of this model, that we can't recognize that it looks like the bystander is right on top, but we are saying that we can put it in any way. The point we are trying to make is all 4 roles are impacted by the cultural parent. There's street fighting in India is very common on the road, yeah. But a woman can never step in and intervene, because it's not at all safe for women to stand up against violence, because then immediately the violence will be directed to them. So you can see the bystander is there, but also limited because of the cultural dimension. Are you able to see the impact of the cultural parent? So the idea that all 4 roles are impacted by the cultural parent, and we easily move between these roles is the model that we created.
I'm very interested in your model. I really like it.
Sure.
And at the same time, I'm still wondering, because in my experience, the bystander always stands by the persecutor, because what they're most afraid of becoming is that they will become the victim.
Mm.
So that's why they're very reluctant to enter other roles.
Yeah, yeah.
So That's my first question for you. And my second question is, do you make any distinction, because Pearl Drago does, between a healthy cultural parent and an unhealthy cultural parent,
yeah.
an oppressive cultural parent? Do you make any distinction there or not?
So let me answer your first question first, which is that bystanders usually side with persecutors because they are afraid of being victims themselves. So this, for us, that's why bystander is an integral part of the drama roles. Because in a second, the bystander has moved from being a bystander to being a victim.
They can do.
Yeah. So this is why we say that they are one of the 4 drama roles. It's very tough for them to stay outside and not be pulled into the drama. They're almost instantly pulled into the drama and they're playing a role. So one of our goals is to through education, offer people options to intervene without getting into the drama roles, which is where the functional fluency model comes. So our focus, now to come to your second question, she says the cultural parent, like the script, has positive components and oppressive components. So we are saying that the cultural parent impacts all roles. It has positive and limiting aspects. Our focus is on when there are limiting aspects, they cannot be recognized as limiting.
Yeah. Okay.
That's our focus.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Because everyone sees that as normal. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If there are no questions, shall I move to so now the focus is on the bystander role and saying how do we allow, so the definition of a bystander is a person who does not help when someone needs help. Yeah. So let me stop this. So one of the things is, so how do we differentiate between a drama role victim, which is a capital V, and a non-drama role victim, which is a lowercase v? What would you say?
Potentially that the uppercase V is looking for a rescuer and the lowercase v is purely just in the situation.
Yeah. So the uppercase V is a person who is discounting their own agency and their own responsibility and their choices. And it's they are furthering their script as part of discounting the options available to them. The lowercase v is a person who's adversely impacted by another's actions or by a system, or and they are not discounting. They truly have no choice. Yeah. So when Petruska Clarkson says a bystander is a person who does not act when somebody needs help, who do you think she's referring to? Capital V victims or lowercase v victims?
Lowercase.
With a capital V, because there's a lot of discounting going on there.
Yeah, so actually both need help. But her larger focus is on lowercase victims. But it's not true that we should not help when two people are engaged in drama roles. Of course, we can help there too, yeah, by educating the victim or getting into dialogue with them. Or there are ways to help. Now, the tricky part is the confusion for the bystander often is this person an adult? And am I jumping in as a rescuer, or does this person really need help? Can you see the dilemma of the bystander? Sometimes will my help come across as patronizing? And will I become a rescuer in the process? or will my act be seen as persecutory? This is why stepping in to help is challenging. It's not such an easy task. Yeah. So bystanders need to think about it a little bit. And that's where we found that the functional fluency model was a very interesting model to allow us to think about situations where we are bystanding and looking at what options do we have there. And let me present to you. I didn't check if people wanted a break. I'm assuming that we can do 2 hours without a break. But let me pause here and check. Am I frozen?
No.
Okay. Do we need a break? Or are we good to go?
Carry on.
I feel my videos.
Yes. So Aruna, you did freeze for a moment, but we could hear you the whole time, and I think we're all on consensus about carrying on.
Okay. There's something wrong with my network. Okay, I can see people coming and going. I'm really hoping my network settles. All right, so let me present to you the functional fluency model. So this was created by Susanna Temple in 1996. And she says there are 8 modes in which we can show up in relationships. And there's the accounting mode, which we use to decide which mode to choose while interacting in relationships. Yeah. And the outer 4 modes are the dysfunctional modes or the unhelpful modes. So the top 2 are the modes in which we take charge or use our energy on behalf of others. So we could be in the dominating mode, which is I'm okay, you're not okay. So I'm bossy, fault-finding, punitive there. Or I could be in the marshmallowing mode, where I could be over-indulgent, inconsistent, smothering. The bottom 2 are the unhelpful modes in which we don't show up as ourselves. Yeah. So I could be reckless and selfish, which is the immature mode, and the anxious, rebellious, or submissive, which is the compliant or resistant modes. The central 4 modes they call the golden modes. Yeah. Or the modes that are helpful. In many times when we are stuck, and the idea is that we develop fluency. We may be fluent, so fluency is used as in the context of languages. So we have a certain strength, and we may easily draw. So maybe we are very nurturing, and we can understand what other people need, and we can appreciate them appropriately. Our presence is very empowering for them. Or we learn to be more fluent and use the modes appropriately. So very briefly, structuring is to provide a structure or a frame that is useful or helpful, to take charge in ways that are empowering for people involved. Nurturing is to provide care in an appropriate manner. Spontaneous is to show up as yourself, playfully, zestfully, creatively, but also appropriately. And then there's cooperative, which is positive adaptation, getting along with people, expressing yourself, but in ways that are socially acceptable, and accounting for another, expressing your needs, adjusting. So that's cooperative mode. I'm going to take a pause, and can someone give me a thumbs up to say that I'm still, or put on chat if you can still see me.
We can still see you and hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So that's the functional fluency mode. So let's work with so I'll work with 2 examples with all of you, generalized examples, and after that I'll invite some examples from all of you and see how we use the functional fluency model there. Okay. For me, all of you are frozen, so I'm really very puzzled whether my signal strength is showing full. So I'm not sure what to do.
Aruna, you are clear in voice and picture.
Yeah.
So shall we contract that if we can't hear you, somebody will say something?
Thank you
Or
so much, because I can hear you clearly, while though the image is frozen, but I can hear you clearly. Let me put my video on and off. Maybe that makes it better. Okay, it's still the same. All right. So, so let me give you a situation. So this is a dining table, and there's a family of 5 people. There's the father, there's the mother, and there are 2 children aged 8 and 6, and there's the father's father. Yeah, the grandfather to the kids. They are at the table, and the father is entertaining the children by talking about how grandfather did very funny things when he was drunk. Yeah, so the stories are like the grandfather was drunk and he went to a fruit seller and he asked for fries. And one day grandpa went out in the car, but he came back on a cycle. The car was found somewhere the other day, and he came in some random stranger's cycle. And the children found these stories hilarious. Yeah. And so this was it. The wife was the trainee, and she brought this situation to the group. And she said, I'm feeling uncomfortable with this, but everyone's laughing. The grandfather's also laughing. So is it only my problem? What am I supposed to do? Yeah, so this was the question she brought to the training group. So now let me ask all of you, is there a game going on? Is there some kind of oppression that you're seeing in this situation? Everyone's laughing, everyone's having a good time. Is there some oppression here?
I think there are quite a lot of possible things going on. You know, because perhaps you could say, yes, there is the suppression of the grandfather. He's being made fun of and he's being made to seem like a fool. But then you could take that further and say that however, the grandfather maybe is an alcoholic and this causes problems. So there are ulterior transactions taking place here, and the father is finding a way to get back at his father, but he may have been a victim of his father's drunkenness. So there's sort of quite a few levels underneath the surface of what is being portrayed at the top, and the father is using gallows laughter to possibly say what he doesn't feel strong enough to say. So at the one level, it looks like he's actually the persecutor. You would use the drama triangle to unpack it, but at another level, it's maybe that he feels that he is the victim.
Yeah. Thank you, Marguerite. All these are possibilities that maybe the father's getting back at his father. Yeah. And through jokes, humiliating him. So who needs help in this situation? Petruska Clarkson's definition is a bystander is a person who does not act when someone needs help. So who do you think needs help?
I was also thinking of the children listening to the stories and how there's a huge discount of the seriousness of being drunk and the safeties and the abuse and everything around it. Whether that's a healthy example that the children were being given. Bringing these stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So both need help. The children certainly need help because they don't have the awareness to differentiate. And these stories are creating an image of drinking being very funny and something light. So the media is also part of the cultural parent, isn't it? So how we position drinking can be oppressive. How we position drinking can normalize something that can be oppressive. So the children are getting an image that drinking is light, drinking is fun. They may also be getting an image that it's okay for men to drink. So some gender roles are associated with that. And of course, their father. So I remember doing this presentation in UK. And when I said the father may be laughing because if he doesn't go along with the joke, then he may not be allowed to stay with them. Maybe he wants a place to stay with his son, and therefore he needs to go along with the joke, and there may be an oppressive angle there too. Yeah, so we recognize that there is oppression, and therefore the mother she's observing this and she's experiencing discomfort and she needs to act, but she feels that if she acts, she's being persecutory. She's being so now we need to help her generate options. Yeah. And shall we use the functional fluency model to see? I'm wondering, was my introduction to the functional fluency model enough? Because though these are called modes, they can be broadly mapped to the functional manifestations of ego states. So assuming there's a level of familiarity. So if I divided you into groups and I asked you to first use the accounting mode. So use the accounting mode and ask yourself questions like, what are the questions you might ask yourself? When is a good time for me to talk? Yeah, should I talk at the dining table? Should I talk later? What should I bring up? And if I were to use, or should I talk to my husband, or should I talk to my children, or should I talk to my father-in-law? Who should I talk to? So ask some of these questions. What could be the harm of talking? What could be the harm of, what could be the harm in whatever options I'm generating? What could be the harm of not acting? Yeah. And another, so that's ask some questions and then start generating options from the structuring, nurturing, cooperative, and the spontaneous modes. Now, finally, you may choose a combination of these. That's okay. But make sure you're generating options in all the 4 modes. So push yourself or challenge yourself a little bit and come up with, don't worry about the practicality of the options while generating options. Have fun, play with the model. Is the ask clear? Okay. So if you want to take a picture of this model on your phones, you could do that. And then I will break you into groups and then you can discuss your options and we come back and we talk about what you came up with. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Great. And that will also give me a little time to see what the problem with my network is. Yeah. So I'll make you into 2 groups, 4 people to a group. And I will give you, say, 8 minutes for this. Yeah. All right. Is everyone back? Hi.
Very cut short, but we did
This
discuss.
time wasn't enough. Oh God, now I can't even see you guys. So I changed my location. Now I can only see black boxes.
So everybody is back on the screen as we were before we went to the breakout room.
We're all here, Aruna.
Okay, I could see Marguerite. So one person, all the others are maybe.
Maybe your view might be on speaker view. Check your view and put it to gallery. You see the boxes.
Yeah.
How strange.
I've never come across that problem. I don't know how to help.
Yeah, even it's such an unusual problem. But anyway, I slowly people are coming back. So that's great. All right. So can I hear from you all what options you came up with? Yeah, we have 2 groups. So maybe group 1 can go first. Clive, Karen, Christy, Marguerite. You have a spokesperson?
We were still deep in discussion. We hadn't got to who might be a spokesperson yet.
So do you want to go back, or are you good? You happy to share what
You,
you've come?
Karen, you go for us. I'm happy to say Karen speaks for us. Is that all right, guys?
Yeah.
Karen, is that all right with you?
Yeah, we were thinking initially the accounting mode in terms of contracting, so setting up, inviting, and we thought that the person most in need of help was in fact the father, who was telling the stories about his grandfather, and he was the key person that would need the conversation. We were throwing about a little bit about a bullseye transaction, and it was so interesting. Marguerite, you were saying you thought there were ulteriors in a bullseye. I thought it was all from adults, and it was particularly intentionally targeting the child, scared child of the person you were talking, plus maybe other things. And there was something around being in all those positive modes of the functional fluency, with some nurturing, with some structure. We were wondering about the spontaneous child. Did that come into it? And I think the sense was, well, there would be curiosity to ask questions, to understand which lives there. There was something about showing up authentically, which kind of lives in that mode as well. The topic was very serious, because what sort of a role model is this for the children? So it wasn't like, let's all have fun here, but I think there are other qualities in that mode that could be useful. That was my overall sense. So please come in, others, to add nuance that I've gotten or focus towards what my sense of it was.
Thank you, Karen. I think that was quite interesting. Yeah. Anyone wants to add anything? Otherwise, I'll ask the second group to share what they came up with, and then we can consolidate. All right, your group is very happy with your summary, Karen. So we have Diane, Jenny, Papia, and Ravia. Would one of you?
Andrew,
And Andrew. Okay, yeah.
who I was going to volunteer.
I was going to volunteer, you die.
I got in first.
Yeah, yeah, happy to go. We were still doing a lot of thinking from the accounting mode, and only just starting to look at some options. So the one thing that we had started to talk about was doing something that helps bring the conversation down a couple of levels, so it's on one plateau that invites everybody around the table to have the potential of an equal voice. So maybe there was a bit of a dance between my sense is that there's a dance of modes there. So maybe there's a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of cooperative, and maybe some spontaneity to make sure that, in particular, the children feel like invited into it, and maybe the spontaneity helps diffuse some of the tension between the father and the grandfather. And then Di was, we were kind of cut short, but Di was bringing in using I statements to help invite that safety and accounting of the impact on the person who had the awareness, so your trainee who brought the context.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah, so if I were to sort out some of the ideas that have emerged from your discussions into the various modes, yeah, so contracting with the father would be which mode? So suppose the mother doesn't say anything at the table, but later contracts with him, saying maybe these kind of stories are not suitable, are not good for either the father or for the children, and contract. So that's what mode would you call that?
I would
I
say
see
it's stepping in
contract-
towards structuring.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the accountability, because it's boundaries, it's, you know, getting into a firm space.
Yes. From a very I'm okay, you're okay space,
Yeah.
and doing what's good for the whole system, the family unit. Yeah. So that's the structuring mode. We were talking about some compassion for the father's wounded child. We're really talking about using the nurturing mode, saying, are you upset with your father for something? Or I know you want to entertain the kids and I see your positive intent there. But I worry if this is helping the children or is it hurting your father in some way, even though he's smiling. So being appreciative of the positive intent, that's the nurturing mode. So you were wondering what the spontaneous mode could be? What could be a spontaneous mode response to this? So if you were to freely say what you want to say, what would you say? Without censoring, fearlessly.
Would that be one of those I statements?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy or whatever.
I
Yeah.
don't like these stories. What kind of stories are these? Yeah. I want to hear nicer stories about grandpa.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't want to hear stories that where we are laughing at him. Yeah. It's a very open, no, without any hidden agenda, a direct, but yet playful way of expressing. Yeah. So I remember I was discussing this with Giles, and he came up with the option where he said, why don't you ask the father, how come you never chose to drink? You didn't become like grandpa for some reason. Tell the children why you never chose to never drink. So you can find playful ways to bring up this topic. Cooperative, of course, cooperative is expressing yourself, but maybe more in a private way. So they accounting for the fact that the father may get embarrassed at the table. So you are in a way adapted, but also expressing yourself clearly, assertively, but accounting for the fact that if you bring it up at the table, he might get defensive. So doing it in a way that's respectful to him. Yeah, and we can use a combination of these. All of these are okay. You could also talk to do you think the mother could talk to the children also? Is that an option? Or talk to the grandfather? All these are options. Of course, there can be options there too. Saying these stories are funny, but also remember drinking is not a good thing. Yeah. Things like that. So okay, now that you've done this, let me ask you, how did the functional fluency model help in generating options for the bystander? What difference did it really make to you?
Before we go into that, I just want to add a little bit about our group, which was that we were wondering whether she was really a bystander or not. Because in a way, she was a bystander while the game was going on, but she was also accounting for what was happening. So I was suggesting that she was less of a bystander, and in the healthy form, the bystander becomes a witness.
Yeah.
Which Gordon Law writes about. So she was witnessing what was happening and not acting at that point in time, but wondering how she might act in the future.
Sure. So all bystanders start off as witnesses, isn't it?
No, well, it depends which model you're using, but Gordon Law has developed rather a nice idea about how if you are actually not discounting, but you're observing accurately and powerfully what's happening, even if you're not acting yet or not in a position to act, then you're not a bystander, you're a witness.
Fantastic.
And I think it's a nice extra you perhaps add into the thinking.
Yeah, because I may see something, but I may choose not to act because my action could harm the victim further. Yeah.
Or whatever. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
or I may choose to act in another context so as to not shame persecutor in that situation. Yeah. So all those are yeah. Thank you. So how did the model help you?
So I haven't seen the model before. I think it's very helpful, especially, you know, to go through a brainstorming process and think, what does this look like? What would that look like in each of those modes? And then to develop some actual conversations that could come out of that. I thought it was lovely. I enjoyed using it.
Great, great. Yeah. So when you were trying out the various modes, you're actually using the accounting function. So accounting is an internal mechanism of choosing. Yeah. So so it allowed you to it allowed you to brainstorm on options. That's what I hear, and that was very useful. Any other thoughts? Did you force yourself? I felt you didn't have enough time. Did you force yourself to generate a couple of options along each mode? I'm just asking, if you did that, how would that help?
I don't think we quite got there. We didn't make it. We ran out of time.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
often, yeah, Karen.
My sense is in real terms, we don't just step from one mode to the next mode. We almost flow.
Yes.
The framework that I like to link to that is the integrating adult. We're dancing in that moment, and we dip into, if you like, all those positive modes in a very subtle way. You know, maybe the words are from one mode, but the tone and the intention is got a bit of the other mode in it as well. So it becomes a whole approach.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does. We rarely use a single mode. It will be a combination of modes. However, in my experience, when we've run this earlier, participants have found it very useful to think from a particular mode and generate 2 or 3 options, because it opens up possibilities for them that they wouldn't have considered earlier. We didn't get to that in the small group discussions, but that's what I have heard, that, oh, I didn't think I could be playful here. Let's look at some playful options. So that's how it helped. And the other way it helped people is they got excited about generate. So it became less scary to intervene. How do you respond to that? That often the fear is, will I hurt someone or will I be hurt in the process? But if I have time to think about it and say, maybe I can do it in a kind way or a nurturing way or a playful way or in a cooperative way, or I can contract, or I can even use my position of authority to draw some clear, firm boundaries. And it's not really oppressive. It made them less scared of acting. So that's why we said it reduced fear and increased courage, or in fact, it increased desire to act.
I feel it provides a space. So it provides a space for reflection, looking at all these options. So we respond instead of reacting in the moment.
One of the things just that I was thinking of as well is, and I was thinking of it and no longer remember what I was thinking of. So one of the things that I was thinking about as well is there's, in the accounting mode, there's also the awareness of the potential of a game. So one of the things we spoke about is that speaking directly to the children might send you into the victim in a game with father persecuting you. So I think also when you're in the accounting mode, deciding which mode to go into, it's important to realize that you don't need to rescue the situation. It's really just to not be a bystander and be part of that game, but to step into a potential place where people can themselves step into accounting. And that's quite freeing in terms of the accounting mode, I think, as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it is that I also know the limits of my own capacity for change. And if I were to not be a persecutor or a rescuer, all I can do is even sometimes name the issue or heighten awareness and trust in people's capacities. Yeah, so to not assume the role of fixing the problem. That's what I heard you say, and that's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's where I feel that the model gives options. Like it's possible to be nurturing. And to say that, I think someone just came in. Yeah, it's possible to be nurturing or playful, and these two modes are very powerful modes and often underused. And there's an assumption that I must be structuring, and that can be perceived as persecutory.
So it's it's very generative. I mean, I found what we did is we kind of said, okay, what would we like to say? What might be a possible response? And, you know, just I'm not familiar with TA speak, but a kind of spontaneous response. And then how can you tailor that into each of these modes? And, you know, what would perhaps work the best? What kind of response would you get in that space? You know, how would it be for the other people in the conversation? And also to look at then thinking about, this would be my response. Where does that sit? You know, perhaps it sits in one of the 4 outlying spaces, and what's going on with me that it is like that. So I thought it was very generative, and I think it just brought me into a space of opening possibility.
Lovely.
I think the whole idea of generating as many options as possible is a useful exercise, because I think you could also really say that it would depend on the personality type of the person that you're dealing with as well. Are they a person who responds well to a humorous throwing up of the hands, or are they a person who will respond better to being talked to quietly and nurturatively on the side at a later stage? Or, you know, we understand that different people respond in different ways. So what option is likely to work best with this person? You know, she knows her husband, I'm sure.
Yeah. Lovely. Wonderful. I'm quite heartened by your positive response of using the functional fluency model to generate options when you are witnessing something that you feel is not right. Yeah. So now we have less than half hour together. I have a couple more examples if we can just talk about it in the group. Or we have the option of you bringing a situation where you witness something that you feel is oppressive, but you're not sure how to, and you would like to use the group's resources and the model to generate options for yourself. Sure. So let me take maybe a similar example from the corporate world, and let's generate options for that. So let's assume that there's a team of managers sitting in a room. It includes both men and women, and then another woman leader walks into the room, and one of the leaders in the room says, well, finally, there's some color in the room. Yeah. So this is the comment that's made. Yeah. So now you are sitting in the room, you're one of the leaders. Do you see something that you can say or do in this situation? It feels like a compliment to the person who's walked in. I'm assuming that the ulterior is, here's a pretty person who's walked in, who will energize the room. It's not about skin color. Yeah.
My immediate response is to go into spontaneous. I hope it's not immature, but to go into spontaneous and say, I'm assuming you're saying that because the rest of us are boring. So that we rather take it off for what it potentially could be.
Yeah. How do you like it? Hey, are you saying we're not colorful? Are we boring? Yeah. I think it's a fine response. Yeah, it brings attention to the, I act without shaming the victim or persecuting the persecutor, but brings attention to something. We can call it specification also. You can talk about it later because you've already specified it in the space. Any other option?
I would actually first inquire what do they mean, because it could mean many things, and rather than assume that I understood the comment,
Yeah.
I might give the chance to sort of further explain, oh, what did you mean? What do you mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a structuring response. It could also be seen as cooperative. Could you explain, what do you mean? Yeah. When you say here's some color, what does that really mean? Yeah. So it's a very non-persecutory way of heightening awareness. Any other? Can you wonder aloud the very relational way of dealing with things?
The things that are going through my mind is I would be if I'm somebody in the room, I would be thinking, all right, is this a pattern from this person? And if so, I might have a different range of ways of drawing attention to it. If all of a sudden it was from somebody who was unexpected, I might do my response might be something different, going, oh wow, like what's brought you into the room, or something like that. The other thing is that what comes to mind is taking a measure of like if there's drama triangle, so it's a game, and what's the stakes at that point? Like if the stakes have all of a sudden gotten quite high, coming from probably more of a very much an adult structuring space, but if it's still the stakes are still quite low, might be a bit more free to engage in the spontaneity side of things.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, if you were the leader of the group, then your response can be very different from if you were maybe the person who made the comment was a leader and you were a more relatively junior manager. All that. So all your accounting questions, is this a pattern? Is this a one-off thing? How is the other person? Is the other person are they looking hurt by that statement, or have they withdrawn? So that's the high stakes I'm talking about. Yeah. And that's the high stakes I assume you were talking about. So all that influences your choice. But if you were really to take charge and say, hey, these kinds of comments are not acceptable. It could be that's a simple structuring statement. These could be, or it could be a wondering together. I wonder if this is excluding, or I wonder how you're feeling when you hear this, involving the person and getting into a dialogue. All of these are options. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Ravia. I think your sharing made me remember this example that I brought in. It's 7:15. We can look at one more example, or I could take questions.
Sorry, Aruna, I meant to say at the beginning, I got confused with the time zones, and I actually thought that this would be from 1 to 3, but it's actually 2 to 4 because of summertime. So I do need to leave for another appointment. I'm very sorry.
No worries. You stay.
Rather than leave in the middle of your discussion. Thank you very much. This was really stimulating and wonderful insights. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. It was lovely your sharing as well. I hope our paths cross again. Thank you, Ravia.
I hope so. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ravia.
Is it your example, Aruna, has also reminded me of one of my clients who keeps getting inappropriate compliments, not from the men in her group that she works with, but from a particular woman. And she's found this particularly difficult to handle because it was coming from another woman rather than from men. Like she's sort of geared up to deal with it with men. And so she was particularly stumped and confused, and is still processing quite how, for the moment, she's just sort of been ignoring them. But there's going to come a time where I think she's going to need to look at these options and decide how best to frame her response, and to disclose that she's not comfortable with this, basically, is what she needs to do. But which mode and how and when is what's currently, it's just been going on the last couple of weeks, she's still working with. But that's an interesting one.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, and I think both options are, we've spoken about in the moment saying something, or even outside. So one of the key learning for groups was sometimes they feel that if the moment is past, they don't have a role to play, but that's not true. There are more structuring options, like holding a workshop on what is inclusive language. Yeah, so these are structuring options. So that this is systemic change, or coaching the manager separately outside the meeting. So then people began to see that as bystanders, it was okay if they were confused or flustered and didn't know how to act in the moment. But even later, if they became aware that something was not right, they could take some action, and any action counted and was significant. Yeah. All right, I'm thinking that this is possibly enough, and we could take stock of how this session has been for you. What are you walking back with? Maybe if I could hear some of you share. What was personally significant for you? I could hear that, and then we could wind down.
I think for me, what's been interesting, and it's really from the beginning, is I've been doing some work in the bullying space recently, and I've been trying to navigate how do I, and it's amongst teenagers and especially in the queer space, and how do I navigate it? And it's really affirmed this for me, perhaps, is that the talk doesn't need to be to the bullies or to the victims, but to the bystanders. That perhaps the most powerful discussions need to be about what are you doing about it? If we are going to change it from a cultural parent perspective, because that's where the masses are and that's where the majority are. So it's been very interesting for me just to ponder about that, is that, and then how do I do that from an accounting space without saying, you naughty bystanders, why aren't you stopping these poor little gay boys from being beaten up? So it's, how do I deal with that appropriately? But it really has got me thinking about that role of the bystander quite powerfully.
I'm delighted to hear this. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I work in the area of DEI for my organization, and I have been talking about being an ally, and so that I feel that very close to what bystander role is. I got the deep understanding of with this session what bystander can take in account and respond, and also it's hard to be a bystander and to be an ally. So that is what we need to account for even when we are imparting those training, is what I get an understanding from the session. So thank you, Aruna.
I think it's a lovely connection. Allyship is actually a form of bystander training, isn't it?
Yes.
It's enough to act. And what you're saying is you're walking back with an understanding of how complex it is, and therefore how much you need to support allies in navigating some of their internal confusions. It may not be that easy or straightforward for them. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a wonderful reminder to me of working with oppression. I think you said it's not just an intrapsychic change. It's got to be something in the system. And often in my supervision work with coaches, they reach the point of realizing that the person they've been contracted to work with cannot do anything more than they're doing because of the system, but there isn't a contract for them to do any systemic change. And that's it's almost an ethical dilemma. Then
Yeah.
I don't think easy answers, but this has just reminded me.
Yeah.
Pretend that we're doing good work when there's something in the system that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, lovely. And I will also want to add to it that if we start thinking about cultural and social factors along with individual factors, we'll begin to see the nature of our work changes. Yeah. So for instance, there was this client of mine who brought in, he's on the verge of committing to a relationship, but he's stuck. He's not able to move forward. And he was like, why am I so scared of commitment? Yeah. And so I put him, I invited him into a 2-chair work where I said, here's the part that wants to enter the relationship and here's the part that's hesitating. And when he spoke from the chair where he wanted to enter the relationship, he said, I want to have a happy life. And I have this image of a partner who understands me. And I have this vision of having children and feeling full and complete. So if you hear these words, can you see the cultural angle to it? There's an idealization of this. And he actually, if he sits on the other chair, he feels so much more in his skin that he actually wants to be single. But then this cultural image of what's a happy life is oppressing him. Yeah. So to even begin to see how we may have these pressures that we have internalized and it has become normal, and it can actually turn out to be oppressive for people. So we might relax and we might just relax with our clients and say that they are just fine as they are. I don't know if I brought in a different flavor to what you were sharing. I heard what you were sharing as well, but it triggered this example for me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciated your bringing Helen Pearl Drago's work in and putting your new model with that at the heart of it. Is Aruna still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Bringing that together, I thought was very rich, and I really liked that. So I'm going to go and do more thinking. It's lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I hope I will see you soon in Bangalore.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
Excited, yeah.
Aruna, from my side, what I said in the beginning of what I was looking forward to was understanding bystander more and how to work with that. And the two things that stood out for me was the experience of the functional fluency exercise, and that gaining the feeling of resourcefulness within that. And then the other thing that was significant for me was, and you named this towards the end of that, something about the time doesn't need to be at the moment of the game. There is opportunity later. And I think that just adds even more to that resourcefulness, an invitation for a bystander to opt in a healthy and accounted way.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you. I really enjoyed it. It was a bit hectic on my side trying to keep up, so I need to go back and watch the recording. But I think the thing that stood out for me was just that the bystander has the power to end a game, or to start and end a game. I never really thought about them as having power before. So that word kind of stood out to me, and I need to go explore that a bit more. So thank you.
Okay.
So I think there's a few things that stand out for me. I must say I was very struck by the radical psychiatry manifesto that you were quoting from, and that idea that the system doesn't change, but the oppressed are taught to fight oppression, and how that actually serves to intensify and entrench cultural norms, social and cultural norms that are destructive. And then for me also, what was the thing that I'm busy thinking about is that idea that the bystander doesn't act because they are unsure of being caught up in the drama. Yes, they're afraid of being the victim, but I think you said they're also afraid of whether they can become the persecutor or in fact the rescuer. So that was very interesting, and thank you very much for a most intriguing 2 hours.
Thank you. I'm aware that it's almost time. So actually, Marguerite, you haven't spoken. It's okay. Yeah. If you do you want to
Okay,
speak?
I waited for last because I'm going to be the official ender of this webinar, and just to thank you, Aruna, for doing this with Satar. We so appreciate what you've brought. I found it fascinating, so interesting. For me, what stood out particularly was really spending time thinking about the power that the bystander has. So yeah, I think from all of us, thank you very much for this very valuable workshop.
Thank you. I've been so delighted at how involved and engaged and critically engaged. You're thinking about it so reflectively and bringing in your perspectives. So I will share this with my co-creator Aparna. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I hope to have more opportunities to work with all of you. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly hope you do.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Aruna.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Aruna.
Aruna.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
See you. Bye.
Bye.